undefeated Patriots will probably remain undefeated even after they play football tonight. It is called Thursday Night Football. It is on Fox, and it is the Giants visiting the Patriots. Tom Brady's had trouble taking down Eli Manning, but he's had no trouble at all taking down rookies. The Patriots have won 18 straight home games against quarterbacks under age 25, and so that's a tall hill to climb for under 25 Giants rookie Daniel Jones, especially with Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, and Sterling Shepard all ruled out. Oh, and the Patriots' top-ranked defense. What about that? All right, Nick, what has to happen for the Giants if they want to have any chance of beating the Patriots tonight? CC's all ears on this one.
This is...
So are the Giants, by the way.
I love Cris as saying I should go first on this, because this is a vintage Cris Carter question in this regard. No matter the football game, let's make sure the audience understands how the underdog could win. Not take as a foregone conclusion that the favorite will win.
Don't use my stuff on me.
Okay. Because he's going to need that for himself. He's going to need that back.
I racked my brain on this, and I assume act of God is not a viable option.
That is not an option.
I want people to understand what a Giants win tonight would mean. It would be the biggest upset in the NFL in 25 years.
Why?
Well, just by point spread-wise. They're 17-point dogs. We haven't had a 17-point dog win a game outright in 25 years, since 1994, the 1994 season. So this is a Herculean task. Now, the Patriots were near this type of favorite this past week against a winless Washington team, and that was a 2-point game with 30 seconds left in the first half before Colt McCoy threw an indefensible pick, and it ends up being a 5-point game at halftime. So what do you have to do to stay in the football game? What you must do first and foremost is not turn the ball over. You just simply can't turn the ball over. The Patriots force more turnovers than any team in football.
Yep.
They have 11 interceptions on the year, which is bananas because they've only played 5 games. They've allowed 0 passing touchdowns and forced 11 turnovers with their pass defense. And we know Belichick's history against young quarterbacks. You can pick the category: rookie quarterbacks, second-year quarterbacks. How about we just do quarterbacks under 25? In New England, Jenna, you said it. They've lost 18 in a row. Their passer rating is 69.2. The entirety of the Belichick era, they're 4-31. So this is the type of game where if you're the Giants, there are things you can take positively in a loss, like Daniel Jones not being depantsed, because that is the concern for the Giants. Everyone was on a very quick Daniel Jones apology tour after his first start. His next 2 starts have gone not quite so well, and now he's going to be on the national stage with the entire football world watching against a defense that's playing better than any defense in the NFL against a coach that always annihilates young quarterbacks. So can Daniel Jones play a clean game? And for the Patriots, on their side of things, can their offense start to look a little bit better and keep Tom Brady upright? Those, to me, are the most interesting angles of this football game, because I don't think the Giants have a true viable path to victory.
So, CC, let's do that. Let's break it down and make it very simple. They've got a great defense and a not so great offense right now. So if you're the Giants, don't you try to take advantage of whatever you can on their offense?
You definitely have to try to do that. And watching the Giants film, and this is one thing that stands out. Yes, Daniel Jones was excellent in those first couple games. Has he struggled since then? Yes, but he hadn't had a full complement of players since he's been in there. So we need to ease up some of the criticism on him. But, Jenna, if they're going to pull off the biggest upset in 25 years, like Nick said, you mentioned, you asked him why. It was in your copy. All that offensive productivity, the top 4 guys that Daniel Jones would need from yards from scrimmage, all of these guys are being out. So I can't rely on the offense to be able to win the game. So I need some help from the defense. I need a bunch of turnovers. I'm talking about a bunch. I'm talking about three or four turnovers. That's the type of game it's got to be. They got to score on special teams. They got to score on defense. But I'm going to heed a warning to New England, because I know New England watches the film. But let me tell you, Dexter Lawrence, Marcus Golden, and Jabril Peppers, you better be able to avoid them. Because if you don't block for Tom Brady and you allow one of these guys to get a clean shot on Tom, it'll be lights out. Now, the reason why I'm worried about Tom, it's a Thursday night game. This is the oldest he's ever been. And in the first half of that Washington game, Nick, you pointed out, man, he was getting they were getting to him.
He was getting
often.
hit a lot.
He was darting the ball. Now, yes, we know they pulled away from him in the second half, but for the Giants to be able to win, those three names, because when you watch the Giants, you know those guys are NFL players, and those guys are playing with their career. They got a lot of pride. So if they were to pull off this upset, those three guys on the defense would have created a lot of turnovers, and Tom Brady would have to leave this game before the ending of the game for the Patriots to lose it.
So if you're the Giants, do you look at what what Washington did in that first half and say, how did they keep that game close enough? Is it pressure on Tom Brady?
Well, it was pressure on Tom Brady. That's how you held the Patriots to where they were at 9 points with 30 seconds left in the first half. Washington also had scored one of 2 touchdowns that had been scored on this Patriots defense. It was on a gadget play.
Yep.
Wide receiver sweep. He ends up going 65 yards. Jay Gruden, it was Jay Gruden, pardon me. Jay Gruden didn't do what I wished he would have done. And by the way, no matter what he would have done, they were going to lose that football game. But I'm curious if Pat Shurmur will do it tonight, which is sometimes in these games, a coach will coach not to get blown out versus give myself every chance to win, even if it might result in an even more embarrassing loss. And that means Bill Barnwell calls it a David versus Goliath game, which is when you are this substantial of an underdog, it is a 4th down game, it is an onside kick game, it is a trick play game. It is a game where you are going to have to add some variance to it to give yourself any chance. Some coaches would rather give themselves, it would appear the way they coach, less of a chance to win, but make it more likely that it's respectable. Make it more, okay, listen, we lost, we went to New England, it's on national television on a Thursday night, 31-7, they'd take 17 points, 21-7, and it is what it is, rather than opening the door for this thing being 42-7. But you kind of have to open that door in order to give yourself a chance to win. You have to steal possessions. You have to do things that will catch the Patriots off guard. It's, to me, the only chance this Giants team with a rookie quarterback, with no Barkley, Shepard, or Ingram playing, that they have any viable chance to be in this game late.
Is it not even a conversation that the Patriots offense, they're also without some of their weapons as well? Almost everyone is hurt. Philip Dorsett is now out. Julian Edelman's still nursing the injury. Gordon's got the hamstring injury.
Right.
Are you concerned at all about what they can do?
The only thing that hadn't taken advantage of all the injuries the Patriots have on that offensive line, their wide receivers being in and out, no continuity. Brady's back practicing, but you know all those times he got hit, this is the shortest week of the season. Yes, they're still concerned. That offensive line is not a good offensive line. So if they were to lose this game, it would have a lot to do with the offensive line, allowing people to get to Tom Brady. And yes, I'm still concerned about their passing game. How are they going to generate big plays? And will the Sony Michel from 2018, will he come back? Last week looked a little bit better. So yes, there's still a ton of question marks about their special teams. Missed a kick last week, so they're not out of the woods as far as that. That's something typically you mail in for the Patriots. So yes, I still do have concerns with on the offense side of the ball, though.
Look, we have ourselves a nice little competition in the NFC East now that both the Cowboys and the Eagles are sort of neck and neck. What do you expect from Philly in this upcoming tough stretch, CC?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because it really, you got to break it down into 2 stretches. It's those first 3 games, and then it's those next 2 games with that bye week in there. And to me, I would try to concentrate on those first 3 and not try to get too ahead of that because Chicago going to be waiting on you. Now, we don't know where their season is with their quarterback situation, so that's the 4th game in that 6-game window. But Minnesota, Dallas, and Buffalo,
all on the road.
The reason why I would be so concerned is because during the same time, you're playing Dallas, but Dallas is playing the Jets and the Giants. So they got 2 byes, and they got Philadelphia sandwiched in between. So, you can say I'm just watching for my team and everything, but you got to keep an eye on Dallas because they have a much easier 3-game stretch. So it becomes very important the first game. You can't, I tell my wide receivers, and I teach route running, you can't run a perfect route without a perfect start. And they need to get after Kirk Cousins. Up in Minneapolis, that offensive line has struggled. They've been inconsistently as far as throwing the ball. We know we've had complaints from the wide receivers. Adam Thielen, who says nothing, said we need a better passing game. Stephon Diggs, somewhat of a diva at this point, didn't show up to practice for several days. So you know they have problems there. And the Philadelphia, if they can get that front 7 to get after Kirk Cousins and get win number 1, because I believe they're going to struggle offensively. They miss Deshaun Jackson. They miss his ability and his effect on the defense, and it's really hampering the skill set of the other wide receivers that they have. So I wouldn't be surprised if Philly's offense struggled in this tough stretch they're going through.
And Deshaun's already out for Sunday, so you know you're going into this without him.
And just real quick, I want the audience to understand why. You might say, wait, why would a team be on the road 3 straight weeks in the middle of the season? It's Bryce Harper's fault, if you listen to the NFL schedule makers. With the Phillies, when they signed Bryce Harper, the NFL, they try not to have Eagles and Phillies playoff games same day. And the Phillies adding Bryce, because they share a parking area. All the sports complex in the same area.
Yeah.
Once the Phillies added Bryce Harper, they thought they might be in the postseason. That's why Philadelphia is on the road these 3 weeks here at least.
They probably thought he was going to be better too in the first.
Well, I was going to say, nobody's
right.
happy about that whole situation than the Nationals.
Right, the
now.
Nationals, by the way, they move on to the NLCS. The Eagles are on the road. The Phillies are at home. It all went to hell as far as what the plans were. Best laid plans. But to your point, see, about all of this to me for Philadelphia, how is this 3-game road stretch going to go well? How's the 6-game road stretch going to go well? It has to do with that Dallas game. Has to do with the game after this week. And your point that Dallas doesn't have to worry about their game leading up to it is, I think, a really good one. Not that you can overlook the Jets, but you don't have your toughest of competitions this week. So in order to get ready for the Dallas game, you play Minnesota. Minnesota and Philadelphia both got get-right games this past week. They both played teams from New York, and both of them got right on the things they were struggling with. With Minnesota, Kirk Cousins can't pass. Thielen's upset. Diggs is upset. Cousins has his best game, arguably as a Viking, certainly his best game of the year. Thielen has a monster game. The Eagles, the concern was, can't get to the quarterback. Only 2 sacks for the first 4 games. Well, how about 10 sacks against the New York Jets? Scored 2 defensive touchdowns. Can Philadelphia this week against Minnesota, in the lead up to one of their 2 most important games of the season, the game against Dallas, can they exert that type of, not 10 sacks, but that type of pressure on Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota offensive line? Can the Eagles get back to what going into the year I thought they would do best, which is rush the passer, what they did best when they won the Super Bowl? Because what we saw them do best the first game of the year, the deep ball to Deshaun Jackson, to your point, that's still not available to them. So it's going to have to be about Fletcher Cox and that defensive front getting pressure on Kirk Cousins throughout this football game.
I think you still have to talk about this offense, and I think it's a good time for us to check in with where Carson Wentz is right now. Clearly he's under pressure without a lot of his weapons. And when those weapons are there, dropping balls, that's been a theme this season. What do you want to see from Carson Wentz over the next stretch? I
like Carson's development. I think Carson's not trying to overreact. Last year, I thought he was trying to please too many people. Nick Foles still being on the team, leading them to a Super Bowl. He's there on the bench. People questioned his leadership. He said he was going to make some adjustments. But as far as a quarterback, the only thing we really questioned was, can he stay healthy? And when he's under duress, will he keep trying to? Will he do the Andrew Luck? Keep the play alive and take all these excessive hits and everything? Because he's not doing that. So from a quarterback, a general, and a leadership standpoint, he's doing the things that you would want him to do, even though inconsistency as far as different receivers in and out of the lineup. Drop passes in 2 games were a key to them losing in Atlanta. And then the next game they had 7 drops. So I believe Carson Wentz is on the right track as far as a franchise quarterback. Let's look what's going on with quarterbacks in the same class. Goff with the Rams. Plenty of question marks. Dak, last 2 weeks in Dallas. Plenty of question marks. Right now, you would say, and you said it yesterday, Dak's the second best quarterback in this division. I would say Carson Wentz is still the best quarterback of those guys that are still all developing.
Absolutely. Of his draft class, to me, there's not a question about it. And he's distinguished himself as the best quarterback in that division, really starting in year 2 after it looked like Dak had taken the pole position in that regard. One other note for this specific game, Vikings-Eagles. Both these teams were teams that after 4 weeks, we were like, man, what's going on with them? Philadelphia, we had lost back-to-back games that you didn't totally understand. The loss to Atlanta on the 4th and 3 play to Julio, then the home loss to Detroit, which shocked a lot of people, maybe when people were doubting Detroit to a degree. Minnesota, of course, was dealing with the trade rumors and Kirk Cousins, all of that. They both right now feel great because they're both coming off dominating wins against inferior opponents. That feeling can change like that. Ask the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, we righted ourselves against Baltimore. Now the sky is unless you're the Patriots and you're 5-0, unless you're a team that's given given yourself a big margin. 1 week can totally change the tenor of your season. And for Philadelphia, if this week doesn't go well, then they go into that game against Dallas saying, man, this thing could get really tough for us immediately. That's what puts extra importance on this week's game.
Extra importance on that defense. The next 2 weeks, I believe they're facing two of the better backs. There's only one back right now that's played better than Dalvin Cook, and that's Christian McCaffrey there with the Carolina Panthers. Dalvin Cook, if he's the best player on the field, the Eagles lose to the Vikings in Minnesota.
Moving on to Handshake Gate Day 4, with video evidence now clearly showing Richard Sherman and Baker Mayfield did actually exchange a pregame dap Monday night. Sherman is ready to make amends, saying, quote, he definitely deserves an apology, and that's my bad on that. As for Baker, he's just happy the video cameras were rolling.
No, I know what I did, but that's, the one time the camera and something recording me is, gone in my favor.
Listen, I think Baker handled this well. I think Sherm cleaned it up as well as he could have. I don't totally understand why Richard said what he initially said. I know people have false memories. It's one of the reasons eyewitness testimony is not that reliable. And I actually don't think when Richard Sherman was talking to Mike Silver after the game, he thought he was lying. I think Richard Sherman felt snubbed after the game. Then you play a full football game. You're all amped up. You get a win. And he had totally almost erased from his memory this thing and just was like, the guy ran away from me. But the reason I'm glad how Baker handled it is because there's a lot of Richard Sherman and Baker, and there's a lot of Baker and Richard Sherman. And Baker, if he would have bit back, if he would have responded prematurely, any of those things, it would have felt to me a little disingenuous. Part of what has made Richard Sherman who he is the chip on his shoulder and the talking. I am old enough to remember year 2 Richard Sherman seeking out Tom Brady after the Patriots lost to a rookie Russell Wilson in Seattle, running up to him saying, "You mad, bro?" That is part of who he is. And Baker's got an element of that to him as well. It's why I didn't understand Richard taking such issue with it. But I'm glad Richard cleaned it up. I'm glad Baker didn't further inflame the situation, because he's right. He didn't have to say anything. He could just sit there and let the video evidence speak for itself, and then when asked about it, make light of it, not make it a bigger issue than it was. This is something totally not of his creation, his being Baker's, that he handled, I think, with grace, that I think he handled well. I think it's hard to find a way to criticize Baker from any angle on this specific incident.
Yeah, Richard Sherman should know better. After going to a couple Super Bowls and with all the media attention they've had around the teams that he's been on, he's media savvy. He's making a lot of money through the media. He's been doing this too long. You said Richard Sherman year number 2, but in year number 9, you're the same guy that you're out there trying to get attention. To me, it's nothing but jealousy. He was jealous of the attention that the Browns were getting this offseason, wondering why no one's talking about San Francisco, why no one's talking about Richard Sherman. Why? Because he hadn't played that well. That's the reason why we used to talk about him, because of his play. Now he's back on a team that we should be talking about him. But this is all selfish. It's all about me. I want more attention on me. And the veteran players in this league, it's their responsibility to teach the younger guys how to act. And having an old guy teach a guy like Richard Sherman, Baker, that's not the way this league has been made on. The foundation of this league has been the respect the logo, and the older players follow them. I can't have Richard Sherman acting worse than a second-year player. Yeah, I remember Richard Sherman, how he made his name and everything, but this is totally uncalled for. The game is hard enough. It's hard enough on these quarterbacks. It's hard enough getting acclimated to the NFL. And then now our veteran players are going to make it even harder. It's like Richard was working for the media, because all Baker said, the media is after me. Everyone's after me. Well, now the players are after me too? It's just not a good situation. Our veteran players shouldn't have that type of example. Why should he be apologizing? It's at 9 years in the league, he knows better.
I agree with both of you, and I was happy with the way Baker handled the whole situation. All right, CC, we've talked all week about how the Cowboys get themselves back on track. Does that involve getting Ezekiel Elliott more touches throughout the game?
This is the one thing about Dallas. It's so funny, because when we cover the Cowboys, we always just talk about Dak, Zeke, and the star players. But the only way for the star players to be effective Like, if Dak gets criticized, the offensive line plays bad. Like, we make a little mention, the offensive line wasn't good, but Dak was bad. Like, Zeke can't be great. Dak can't be great unless that offensive line gets back to where they used to be. And it seems like they're maybe never going to get to that level. The last couple years, they've been very inconsistent. And because of injuries and because maybe they're a little overrated. But right now, us talking about, well, how does Zeke get back going? We can't talk about Zeke unless we talk about that offensive line. They better be creative. They better try to do some different things, give them some help. You better try to play at least one tight end at all times. And I would try to play as upward as much as 3 tight ends. I would go unbalanced line. Yes, I'm going to get Zeke started, but I need a scheme to get him started. We are not the Dallas Cowboys of 3 years ago, where we can line up in a regular pro set and just knock you off the ball. They're not that way. They got replacement players at left tackle, replacement player at right tackle. The best part of that offensive line is right in the middle, the center, and that right guard. And you have to be able to generate the power of that offense right through the middle. And how I'm going to be able to do that? You have to do it a lot of different ways. I would run the ball with the wide receivers, run a few more speed sweeps. You have to be creative in the running game. Now is when a young coordinator in Kellen Moore, like, you get ready to test him and see if he's worth the money. All right, him and John Kitna, the new quarterback coach, you have to be creative when you have injuries. Yes, we know you have to run the ball, but I sound like an idiot saying, oh, Zeke needs 30 carries. Well, where are you going to run to? Because they're going to have a lot of opposite color jerseys in the backfield off that left edge and off that right edge where they have replacement players. So if they don't come up with some different scheme, you're going to see Zeke's numbers continue to be just mediocre.
So 2 points on this. One about how they're using him and the other about the importance of Zeke playing well. How they're using him, I don't really take issue with. His touches are down. Why? Well, because in week 1, we knew he was on a pitch count. They blew out the Giants anyway, so it didn't matter. Week 4, he had 18 carries. He just couldn't run the ball. It was against New Orleans. They tried to feed him the ball, 18 carries for 35 yards. Last week, the fewest rushes of the season, 12. Well, when you're down 31-3 at one point in a football game, you're going to be taken out of your run game. So I don't have an issue with how Dallas is using him. But the more important point is his importance. We know they are 1-8 when he doesn't have 75 yards rushing in his career. Maybe just as important. They're 15-2 when he has at least $110. Now, sometimes that can be misleading. It's like, okay, well, yeah, because they were blowing you out, so they fed the running back. No, I dove into it this morning. That 15-2, 7 of those are one-score games. They are, and by the way, those times they're 1-8 when he doesn't have 75 yards. It's not because they abandoned the run because they were getting annihilated. 4 of those are 3-point games or less. It is truly, if Zeke has a great game, the Cowboys are nearly unbeatable. If he has a mediocre game, they have nearly no path to victory. And then if it's somewhere in the middle, they're somewhere in the middle. So whether it's through the offensive line, play calling, bringing on more tight ends, Jason Witten playing better as supposedly once upon a time a really good blocker, whatever it is, the reason they gave Zeke $100 million, the reason we said he had leverage in his holdout in an era where running backs never have leverage, is because this is still true. He is the most important and dynamic player on that offense, and the Cowboys over these last 4 years don't have a history of success that doesn't involve Zeke Elliott playing great football.
If you remember in the offseason, and perhaps a lot of it was because Jerry Jones was negotiating with Zeke, Jerry Jones even said, we're going to go into the season focused a little bit more on the pass and not as much reliant on Ezekiel Elliott. But how much of it is that Kellen Moore is just scheming a more pass-happy offense, and maybe the goal is not to run everything through Zeke, or is it just the fact that, I don't know, you need to win other ways than just running it?
For Dallas to get into the playoffs and for Dallas to be a Super Bowl contender, you have to have variation within the offense. We know they have been exceptional running it. They couldn't get any better at running the football. The only way they can get better is doing things, either getting the same yardage, running the ball, by doing it a different way. That by getting the guy outside. Now, typically, if they had their tackles, I would say get the ball on the outside. But one of the biggest difference in this year and previous year is, and I believe it's training camp, you don't see the big run by Zeke. You don't see that 40, 50-yard run. If you add one of those in there, every other game, not every game you can't expect that, then you start to see the explosive plays. But for them to reach their potential, they got to be able to throw the ball and throw the ball down the field. We can sit here and be like, oh, Zeke's numbers are this. That will get you 10-6. That will get you maybe one playoff win. It won't get you no Super Bowl trophy. So, yes, they do have to have balance. But in doing that, the proper balance is the wide receivers have to consistently make plays, and they haven't been able to do that. The most consistent thing has been Ezekiel Elliott. So, yes, he is the table setter for the Dallas Cowboys, and they need him to be consistent, but it's hard when you have that offensive line that they have.
And one last very small point. He also is the heartbeat of the team. And we've heard Cowboys say this, and it's also clear when you're watching them. When he is eating, and he is running, it is you can feel the offense have an element of momentum similar to a few years ago, Cam Newton's MVP season. When Cam was doing the Superman and doing the first down signals, you could see the exuberance and the almost momentum shift to his side of the ball. I think Zeke does the same thing for Dallas.
I think we're missing out a lot on Dallas. I believe their biggest problem is their run defense. Everybody wants to talk about Dak. Everyone wants to talk about Zeke, talk about Amari. If that run defense continues to play that way, then you can't win time of possession. There is no catalyst to any type of comeback. Look at the playoff game. Look at a couple games this year. Them not being able to stop runners because they're undersized and their linebackers aren't making the plays that they made last year.
Well, a good week for all three units to look good. They're taking on the Jets Sunday, so we'll see how they do there. Back here, first things first, joined by Super Bowl champ Cris Canty. Good morning, Cris.
Good morning, Jenna. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm good. Ready to talk some football.
Bro, you suiting up tonight? The Giants need you.
Nah, man. I'm a civilian, CC. I ain't got these like that no more, man.
Smooth around the face. Maybe not as slim around the waist. They can use you tonight, dog.
Let's talk about a different team. Checking in with the Kansas City Chiefs. Only 5 games into the season, and reigning MVP Patrick Mahomes is already a candidate for current MVP Patrick Mahomes. The mobile superstar quarterback on pace for another incredible season, but that mobility took a hit last week when his already injured ankle was stepped on by his teammate. Yesterday, a collective sigh of relief as Mahomes said he should be good to go Sunday against the Texans. Canty, you worried about Mahomes' injury? He says it's good, but it's good enough.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about it. I mean, you can't ignore what's happened the last couple of weeks. Only one passing touchdown in 2 games. And for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era, the Chiefs were held underneath 26-point scoring. So it's got to be a little bit alarming if you're Andy Reid. But ultimately, I trust him. I trust that he's not going to put his quarterback in harm's way. He's going to make sure that Pat Mahomes is healthy enough to go out there and make the requisite plays in order to allow the team to be competitive. But when you look at how teams are defending this Kansas City Chiefs passing attack, a lot of man coverage, it'll be interesting to see if Pat Mahomes can utilize his mobility to extend it down and give those receivers a little bit more time to uncover and create some separation. That's one of the things I'll be looking for this weekend.
Yeah, well, 2 things. As far as concern over Patrick Mahomes' ankle, I'm not concerned. If you look at the practice video from yesterday, he didn't have any extra tape on the ankle in practice. He's a young player, and typically young players, they recover a lot faster. So Sunday's injury, he's back on the field. He wasn't limited at practice, didn't have the big bandage on it, didn't have the spat typically over which he had during the game. A spat is what the players put, instead of taping their ankle, they'll tape outside the cleat and tape the sock and everything. It's a more firm fit to secure the ankle a little better. And we saw that week number 1, and we also saw it in last week's game. So youth is on his side, so I'm not concerned about that. If there's a concern that I have, I'm not concerned about the man-to-man, because I do believe that they'll start lining up in a few more bunch formations, and you can get a little more picks, a little more rubs, because when Sammy Watkins is not in there and Tyreek Hill's not in there, they don't have a whole bunch of experienced route runners. So Andy Reid's got to be able to help them out. My biggest concern is Kansas City is with Andy Reid. Is Andy Reid going to ever develop a running game? So let's just say last week he did have the lead. How would they have been able to take the pressure off Patty Mahomes by running out the clock? Because he couldn't run because he was injured. Let's just say hypothetically, how would he be able to do that? Because what I've seen through Andy Reid, he's one of the best play callers that's ever been in the NFL. And over the last 10 years, him and Sean Payton are 1 and 2. But Sean Payton got a running game. Sean Payton will design some stuff. Sean Payton is trying to punch you in your throat and trying to run that football, even though they have the prolific numbers. The biggest problem in Kansas City is their defense, and will they ever have some type of running game? Because even if he was injured, if I would say, okay, he's injured, what are we going to do? How are they going to protect him? He couldn't.
Right.
He couldn't protect him because there is no running game.
Well, and that's the key here. So we know the Chiefs' defense last year was their undoing, and this year, while it has a lot of new talent, a new defensive coordinator, statistically has not been much better. That's one facet of the game. Then there's the offensive side of the ball. You've already said the running game is a concern. So what's left? You got your special teams, where the Chiefs have always been good under Dave Tobb, and then you have really the most important facet: what can Patrick Mahomes do? And that's where this concern exists if this is a lingering injury that affects his play. If Patrick Mahomes was never allowed to run, if he was a pure drop back passer, I still believe he has the arm talent to be top 5 quarterback in the league. I think if he just simply stayed in the pocket, statuesque, he's still a top 5 guy. But what makes him clearly the best quarterback in football is that combined with the improvisation. You mentioned only one touchdown the last 2 games. You're correct. It was one hell of a touchdown. He rolls to his right, rolls back, rolls to his left, throws across his body. It's unbelievable. Those types of plays that only he and maybe Russell Wilson can make. And so the Chiefs have to have that. Because for the reason the Chiefs are a top 5 team in this league, the reason the Chiefs are right behind the Patriots as favorites to go to the Super Bowl is because of him. Him and that passing attack. Because the running game is limited. I agree with you. Ever since Kareem Hunt's been off this team, they have had a question mark at running back. The defense has been a question mark. In fact, it's actually been an answer. It's just been the wrong answer the last 2 years. It's because of what they can do in the passing game. Now, he does, it would appear, have some reinforcements coming. They think Tyreek Hill is probably going to play this week. He is the one guy with Sammy Watkins out that can beat man coverage, and I think teams are afraid to play a lot of man coverage against Tyreek Hill because of his raw speed and his improvements as a route runner. So they haven't had Tyreek Hill since the second quarter of the Jacksonville game. That will be a huge addition. But the Chiefs' path to the Super Bowl is Patrick Mahomes winning league MVP again. Patrick Mahomes being the best player in football again, because that is what they have built this team around.
So how much does the game plan change Sunday against the Texans if he doesn't have the same mobility, even though he says he's okay? You know he's not going to have the exact same mobility that he had if he was 100% healthy.
No, he's not going to have it. And so if you're Andy Reid, you have to try to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. Now the question becomes, who do you have that can win quickly off the line of scrimmage where he can dump it off? Who's going to be that safety valve for Pat Mahomes? Because they don't have any running game to speak of. I think last week they had less than 40 yards rushing. So, I mean, you've got to try to give your team some balance. And if you can't do it by being able to hand the ball off, let the short passing game be an extension of the running game. So I think that's what they have to look at. But, I mean, as far as his importance to this team, if Pat Mahomes has to miss any extended period of time, the Chiefs' season is over from the standpoint of trying to accomplish what they set out to do this season, which is compete for a championship. They ain't doing that without 15 on the field. So
no, absolutely.
I think that's why you have to keep an eye on this ankle injury, because it is one of those things where you're trying to position yourself to compete, and you know that the New England Patriots are trying to position themselves to try to have home field advantage this time around.
And you've already given up one.
Exactly, and you've already given up one. And then, oh, by the way, the guy that you're playing against this week, the guy that's quarterbacking the other team, he's pretty doggone good too. So, I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Deshaun Watson threw for 5 touchdown passes last week. You might have to put some points on the scoreboard in order to try to get another win this week. So it'll be interesting.
Look for them to try to force feed Travis Kelce. Didn't have the type of outstanding game you would expect him last week. Couple drops, a little skirmish on the sideline with the enemy on the side. They kissed and made up and everything. But look for the tight end to be more involved, because the wide receivers outside have been inconsistent.
Conversation all season long has been focused on New England's top-ranked defense. Tom Brady is trying to get the focus back onto the offense. So, Cris, Kenny, what do you think the Patriots need to do that, to get their offense back on track?
Well, I think they need to take a page out of their game plan in the second half against the Washington Redskins, and that's run the football. You saw that they put up 21 points in that second half, and that had a lot to do with being able to rush for over 100 yards. So I think if they can use that as the formula and then set up opportunities with play-action passing, I think that would give this opportunity for the Patriots offense to get clicking again. I think it's more of a rhythm thing and just trying to find their way, trying to find their identity. They got some moving parts on the offensive line. They've had skill position players in and out of the lineup. So I think a big part about trying to stabilize what you're doing is being able to get back to the basics, and that includes being able to run the football.
Man, when you're playing the New York Giants, I don't care what you got paining you. Your running game is paining you. Your passing game. We saw Stephon Diggs. He ain't come to practice. He was in protest. If I don't get the ball in this game against the Giants are so bad. Their secondary is so bad. Everyone's getting well on them. How do the Patriots need to get this right? What about Josh Gordon? What about Josh Gordon having a big game? What about some big plays down the field with Brady? Edelman's been banged up with a chest injury, in and out of practice the last couple of weeks. He had a really good game last week. The tight ends emerged in the passing game. Philip Dorsett's out with another injury. So they don't have a speed receiver in that offense. Like, if I'm the Giants, I'm like, who on that offense is going to scare you? And Josh Gordon is the only one. So if I'm the Patriots, if I'm Josh McDaniel, what I'm trying to do is get that guy and get his confidence, because I'm not going to have cupcake after cupcake.
Eventually, you got to play real teams.
Yeah, eventually you're going to be introduced to You're going through college football. We're going to advance you to the CFL the next couple games. And then eventually the NFL. You're going to play about 6 NFL games before the playoffs. Right. And for them to be better than what they were last year, Josh has got to be a part of that. Yes, I know they went on the playoff run without him. But that's why it was a struggle, because they didn't have a legitimate wide receiver that can line up on the numbers, outside the numbers, and make plays. And that's what Josh Gordon should be able to do.
Okay, so, and I know Patriot fans think that any criticism of them is sacrilegious, and that what more do you want from us? We're 5-0. We're third in the NFL in points per game. You want our offense to be better. Some stats are misleading. Let's just take competition out of it, which Cris alluded to. We all know how weak the competition's been outside of the Buffalo game. Mm-hmm. But that third in points per game has been buttressed enormously by the defense. Not just the defense scoring, the defense creating extra possessions, the defense creating short fields. There's 3 stats that can really, to me, indicate how effective on a per-play basis an offense is. Yards per play, which is an obvious one, third down effectiveness, and red zone effectiveness. The Patriots are, respectively, in those 3 categories, 19th, 16th, and 21st. That's with their schedule. That's with the soft defenses. And when you look at the Patriots offense, you see a running game where, prior to last week, Sony Michel was really struggling. He did, to his credit, he had his best game of the season by far last week. You saw Tom Brady's lack of what I'll call enthusiasm when talking about his tight ends. Even though they played a better game, he's talking about, you want me to talk about Lacoste and Izzo as guys that are going to be saviors? Philip Dorsett is out this week. Why does that matter? Because he's the second leading receiver on the football team. We know the issues on the offensive line. The Patriots offense, the offensive line is injured. The running back has not been playing well this year, and they do not have elite or even very good talent at wide receiver or tight end outside of Edelman. And Edelman, how good is he right now outside of, you trust him in the playoffs, you trust his ability to not shrink in a big moment, but on a week-to-week basis. I'll say what I said last week. If you think the Patriots have an elite offense, then 16-0 and coasting to the Super Bowl is absolutely on the board, because they have one of the best defenses we've seen in this league over the last decade. The offense, though, has to start clicking in at least one phase, and I'm not seeing that thus far this season.
Well, you can't lay out every single thing in every aspect of the offense as not performing up to standard and say, well, they just have to start getting better. Where do you want them to start getting better? They did start running the ball a little bit last week, but Sony Michel's been...
Not let Tom Brady get hit 10 times like last week.
Okay,
that would be where I would start.
No, that's a good place to start. But, I mean, they have a saying in baseball, look at the back of the baseball card, because that's what the player is going to perform up to or down to. That's going to be the average. So when you look back on the season, I think we'll look at this Patriots offense and we would have said they figured it out at some point, because in those key metrics that you outlined, it's probably as bad as it's ever been in the Bill Belichick era. So I think that you have to think that if you continue to get more opportunities, if you continue to have your defense play at the pace that they're playing at, this offense will eventually figure it out. And playing against the New York Giants, like CC said, it's a get-right game for them, right? This is an opportunity to get some extra possessions against a team that's starting a rookie quarterback. Since 2014, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, 7-0 against rookie quarterbacks, 11-0 all-time in Foxborough. So they'll have an opportunity tonight to get this thing back on track. Weather is going to play a role in this, so I don't know how effective the passing game is going to be, but I think that plays into what Bill Belichick and the Patriots offense needs to be thinking, which is getting back to being able to run the football.
But, Canny, just one quick counter. When you say look at the back of the baseball card, I think it's a great point, and I like it. And you're right, the Belichick era back of the baseball card, so to speak, would say they will get it right. But the actual players he has, look at the back of their baseball card and tell me why I have faith that Marshall Newhouse all of a sudden going to become an above-average left tackle, that LaCosse or Izzo are going to become above-average tight ends, that Philip Dorsett, when he's back, is going to be an above-average receiver, that Josh Gordon is back of his baseball card. You can find the great season, but you got to go up a bunch of years. And so, that's the concern is Belichick has the history, Brady has the history.
Yep.
No one else on that offense outside of Edelman does.
Yeah, they better keep Tom Brady healthy, because I don't care what Patriots fans want to say. There is no way they got confidence in anybody else orchestrating that offense with the lack of talent. So they could improve. We're just granting them, Jenna, 20 years of success. Oh, they'll get it right. Well, they lost their left tackle. They lost their right tackle. And a bunch of other substitutes in there, tight end. What's their names?
Well, LaCosse and Izzo.
That's like a shirt and a pair of shoes. Okay? That is not great. So keep Tom Brady healthy. That's the path to winning for the Patriots into the playoffs and win another Super Bowl.
Nicholas, you're ranking the best teams in the NFL, so get to it.
All right, we will do the top 8 as we do when we're doing the best teams in the NFL.
No, we don't. Sometimes you do 6, sometimes you do 7,
Best teams
sometimes
in the NFL,
9.
It's going to consistently be 8 because that is exactly 1/4 of the league. So we will start with
rhyme and reason right
number
there.
8. This team has the single best win any team has in the league this year, the Indianapolis Colts, led by one Jacoby Brissett, really led by Frank Reich, Quentin Nelson, and they're great big people. They won in Kansas City to get to 3-2. I understand the Houston Texans are getting the headlines in that division. I trust this team's infrastructure, their offensive line, and their coaching far more than I do Houston. I've got the
Jenna, he's off to this kind of start.
Okay. All right, we'll see.
Well, hold on, he's got 7 more.
Number 7, top 3 defense, a team that has taken advantage of a bad schedule, but also the only team to throw a scare into the New England Patriots, the Buffalo Bills. Some people's preseason wildcard pick out of the AFC, I don't know who those some people are. They are overcoming what is terrible quarterback play to consistently be a good team. I think Sean McDermott's an underrated coach. Nobody wants to play the Buffalo Bills right now.
Self-promotion's not a good trait to have, okay?
Okay.
All right.
You got any commentary on the Bills?
Well, I know you picked the Bills. You got to keep them alive.
I forgot. I didn't know who it was. All right, number 6. One of only 2 undefeated teams in football. You might say, why aren't they higher? I need to see them beat a few more teams. I got some questions about the receivers and maybe even their quarterback still. The San Francisco 49ers, though, what they have done on the ground. See, they're averaging 200 yards rushing per game. We saw Nicky Bosa have his first real flash game of his very young career. Niners, number 6, they can move higher if they win this week, their first real test of the year.
They should definitely be in the top 4. Jenna, top 5 in scoring offense, top 5 scoring defense. 49ers are back. They will be on this list all year, Nick.
And they're very, very eager to shake hands with the opposition. So for no other reason, leave them at number 6.
And people are going to be mad. They're going to say, how can an undefeated team be number 6? Because it's not the standings. It's a power rankings. If it was the standings, you just print them off. This is according to how they're playing.
Nick.
Number 5, the Seattle Seahawks. Very tough NFC West now. The Rams don't even make it. You got 2 teams, 5 and 6. Seattle, they've got a guy right now who's the league MVP in Russell Wilson. Clowney is already paying dividends. Tyler Lockett, last year, a lot of people thought it was an aberration. This year it has not been. We know what they've already beaten the Rams, which puts them in a good position division-wise. Seattle Seahawks, with that great home field advantage and Russell Wilson, they're the 5th best team in football.
Proceed.
Number 4. It's the lowest I've had them all year. It hurts my heart, but I got to be fair. I got to be unbiased. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow.
Kansas City Chiefs, they were number 1, but when you lose a game as a double-digit favorite at home, when your quarterback's gimping, when all of a sudden you have injuries on your offensive line, your receiving core, you got to drop a few spots. Now, I think the Chiefs will get right this week at home against Houston, but given the questions on defense and until we see Mahomes play a full healthy game, the questions at quarterback, they got to drop out of the top 3 to number 4.
Kansas City should be number 2. 2. I don't care who you got number 1, number 3. They should be number 2.
Okay,
they're the second best team in the league.
Well, I have a feeling the team you're saying that should be number 1 is going to end up being number 3. Number 3 is the New England Patriots. All-time good defense. We have talked a lot about the concerns on offense, and it's real concerns on offense.
You looking for the list?
No, I'm looking for a cup to drug test this fall.
Okay, well, I'm very interested.
Who number 1
if
is.
you really would think the Patriots on a neutral field would be favored over either of the 2 remaining football teams, because number 2 is the New Orleans Saints. Their ability to withstand injury to their quarterback and their ability to show the full complement of talent their roster, coaching staff, coordinators, and the other 52 guys has been exceptional. They have not had an easy schedule, yet they're 4-1. They've already beaten Houston, Seattle, and Dallas. 2 teams that are on this list, and I know some people would have Dallas on this list. I've got the Saints at number 2.
They have been the most impressive, but that would get them at number 3. New England should be number 1, and Kansas City should be number 2.
Well, that means the team I have number 1, you would have outside of the top 3, and that is the Green Bay Packers. Number 1 turnover differential in football. Maybe the toughest open of the season schedule of any good team. At Chicago, win. Home Minnesota. Dominated in Dallas. They're doing it without Aaron Rodgers playing great, and I would say without Aaron Rodgers fully comfortable in this offense yet, and they just won last week without Devontae Adams. This is a team that is staring at 12-4 as a basement for their season, assuming Rodgers stays healthy. Aaron Jones coming off his best game of his career. Right now, they're the most dangerous team in football.
Yeah, how long is Aaron Rodgers going to be happy being a supporting character?
As long as his movie keeps winning the Oscar, which is, of course, the.
And I don't believe they're going to run Aaron Jones like that every week.
Well, I don't think
Devontae Adams is going to be hampered for at least a month.
Okay, well, right now, through 5 weeks, I think the best team in the league has been the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones coming off best game of his career. You were right about Devontae Adams' toe injury. That was a concern. They still managed to hang 34 on the Dallas Cowboys. There is Nick's list through week 5.
Right,
Great best teams in the NFL.
Man.
I like it.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
The Patriots host the Giants tonight. That's on Fox. With little hope for the G-Men, it seems like a good get-right game for New England. So, CC, the player the Pats most need to get the offense on track going forward is blank.
Jenna, his name is Marshall Newhouse, and he happens to play left tackle. And if you happen to hear his name an awful lot in the telecast,
it ain't great.
That means, no, his mama don't want to hear his name. His English teacher from high school don't want to hear his name. His college coach don't want to hear his name. But they've had problems. 4th left tackle in 3 years. Tom Brady frustrated with the first half, lack of productivity. Tom Brady getting hit too many times in week number 5. We need to protect that backside for the 40, soon to be, what is he, 42 now?
Marshall Newhouse.
Because I don't think the offensive line is going to get much better throughout the season. I don't think they're going to have a prolific passing game. So they're going to have a better running game. Sony Michel just had his first good game of the year last week. He needs to show this week it wasn't an aberration, that he can continue getting back on track. That made him a first-round pick and had a really excellent rookie season with New England. So Sony Michel, to make sure we know last week wasn't the aberrant performance for the weekend.
All right, here's a story that'll make Nick happy.
Aberrant is what I meant to say.
The Bengals are 0-5, so any hopes for the playoffs are all but gone.
Damn it. Trying to be smart.
So rumors are swirling about trades for 7-time Pro Bowler A.J. Green. That's A.J. Green, Nick. Okay, I just know if you wanted to help you to pronounce that. Nick, the team you'd like to see A.J. Green with after the trade deadline is blank.
Well, I've mocked A.J. Green to 6 different teams, so I have to narrow it down to one right now. The Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks right now are a legitimate, not only playoff contender, playoff favorite. You add A.J. Green, they become a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think they need a little more punch on their offense, get Tyler Lockett back to his more natural role as a number 2 receiver, let DK Metcalf come along slower. Seattle Seahawks.
The problem with A.J. and Tyler Lockett play the same position. They play the flanker, which is to the field side. DK Metcalf is the big, powerful receiver. You put him to the boundary side. So it's a position fit there. I do believe that the 49ers.
They could use him.
Kyle Shanahan with his overall creativity, and because I said that, he plays the flanker. Who does the 49ers have a tight end? George Kittle, second best tight end in the NFL. Their strong side passing game will become a plus immediately. Kyle Shanahan, man, you guys got the draft capital. You got paper. He fits into that locker room. No maintenance. A non-diva wide receiver, Jenna. Your favorite.
Real quick, what did you tell me? The whole league funnels towards whom?
New England.
If he ends up getting traded to New England, if they get another bailout from a team that's supposed to be competing with them, oh my God. Anywhere but New England should have been my answer.
ABP.
Oh, God.
ABP. Sam Darnold is back, but L. Bell doesn't want him to feel the pressure.
I don't think that's going to make it to be a song like
Sam
OPP.
Darnold doesn't need to be Superman. Some teams need heroics from their quarterback, though. So you see, the quarterback that needs to play like Superman to lead their team to the playoffs is blank.
The one that's wasting the president's time talking to him last week.
Kirk
Cousins, yeah. They are a quarterback away, and their offensive line is improving. Dalvin Cook is a superstar. Quick feet through the line of scrimmage, making people miss, has explosive ability, a receiver out of the backfield. But our quarterback, he got all the guaranteed money. Man, I need you to play some football. Stay out the phone.
The only way for the Houston Texans to make the playoffs, much less be a Super Bowl contender, is for Deshaun Watson to play like Superman. So for me, it is the Texans.
We're not in the debate and anything, but that guy's more likely to be Superman than the guy I picked.
Okay, yeah, well, and his team might need him more because they don't have the Vikings defense. They don't have Dalvin Cook. They don't have the talent around him. This is my favorite stat of the NFL season. Deshaun Watson in his career has thrown 5 touchdown passes in 100% of the games. He hasn't been sacked. Unfortunately for him, that's only been 2 times in his career where he's gone without being sacked. You keep him upright, he is as good as just about anyone in football. They kept him upright last week. We'll see if they can do that this week against Kansas City.
In my next life, I'm coming back as a left tackle. I'm just going to tell you. They're so needed.
Jenna,
Jenna, they're fat, though.
Okay.
Are you going to be the fittest left tackle ever?
I didn't think it all the way through. I didn't think it through.
No, I got you. You're going to be ripped. Bill Fraley was ripped.
Bill Fraley
have some assistance, though.
So, Pro Football Focus has the Patriots atop their Week 6 power rankings. They're followed by the Saints and the Chiefs. We recognize the cream of the crop at CC, the most underappreciated team in the NFL. Underappreciated is blank.
I'm going to go with, because I call him the most underappreciated player, and that's the player you talked about. Deshaun Watson, his outstanding sack since he's been in the league. When he's not sacked, 2 games, 10 touchdowns in those 2 games. Man, the Houston Texans, without a general manager, without a direction, I believe that they're underrated. They're starting to adjust to not having Clowney on the defense, and that offense is prolific. They can score points against any defense out there. The Texans are my choice.
And they got a great opportunity to really explode onto the national radar this week if they beat Kansas City. You have I had said that the quarterback duel we're going to see in the AFC for a decade is Mahomes versus Baker. Maybe it's the one we're going to see this weekend, Mahomes versus Deshaun Watson. So I understand the pick with the Houston Texans. I'm going to say, listen, Pro Football Focus had the Bills 18th. They're 4-1. They got a top 3 defense.
They don't hear how hot Buffalo is. I want to make sure I'm right about that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was wrong. Pro Football Focus. You had the Bills 19th. 19th? They're 4-1, and the one loss came to New England. That's an outrage. Our producer, Dave Urmacher, who's a part-time Bills fan, says I got to give Josh Allen.
He be part-time?
He loves the Steelers, but he used to live in the Buffalo area. He likes them both. It's kind of odd because they're both AFC teams.
But
he says I got to do a better job of recognizing that Josh Allen played one of the better games of his career this past weekend.
And you like Sean McDermott.
I like Sean McDermott. I love the defense. Ed Oliver, you know I liked him coming out of the University of Houston. That's an underrated team. It's going to be a playoff team.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.